yeah.
You're in the mix with DJ 7.
Yo, what's up? Check it out. It's your boy DJ L7. Now, as you know, I'm interviewing activists from all over, but this activist today is of special interest to me. We're about to find out why, though. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Richard Chen. I'm by day a software engineer and by other times a activist for mostly Asian American political causes and more recently New York City public safety. And I live in New York City, specifically Brooklyn, and I have a personal interest in this community, of course, physically being here. And 12 years on the Asian American Action Fund board, where I do most of my political outreach and a few central New Jersey communities, which are my hometown area. That's the
Okay.
brief.
That's fucking so awesome, man, because honestly, there's so many times where I be telling people, there's no such thing as Asian American male activists, fuck all this shit. I'm like going crazy and shit like that, yeah? So, and actually, I've reached out to quite a few Asian American activists, a lot of them are not really getting back to me. Some things we talked about before with the programs are about how people have jobs and stuff, but even some of them, the guy who's suing Harvard about, the discrimination, I contacted them and be like, yo, come on the show. Still waiting to hear back, you know what I mean? So we're going to see, but anyways, yeah, just super fascinating about this particular, the Asian American male. I hope to leave this as documentation to my channel for future activists in this space to wonder, like, what was Asian American activism back in the day, and this will be the document and the legacy. So all y'all organizations out there that are treating an Asian American man like he's disposable, don't worry, you're getting fucking. I'm recording this shit for history. You know what I mean? sorry to rant on that, right? So, anyways, the Asian American thing, right? We know Malcolm X, we know Cesar Chavez, we know a lot of people, right? What got you into the activism thing? Where did this start off? Go ahead.
It's largely personal for me. So actually way back in 95 to 99 in my high school days, I had been on 13 organizations in a high school, and many of them were centrally cultural and ethnically oriented. And at that point, it was a 2% Asian town. So everybody was curious about all things Asian. And I realized they are actually curious. There's no malice. And that was an innocent time. When I got to college, the college was 25% Asian. And I finally found a identifying group. So I was extremely happy to have not to explain myself, although I'm happy to explain myself if needed. And so ever since college, I've just been so happy to, I always say, explain and celebrate the amount of Asian American excellence in this country. We don't need to apologize. We don't need to explain to those who know, but if we have to, we could, if we have the energy. We can just enjoy our being our normal selves in all of our identity traits, including ethnic and also cultural and, day job and collegiate. There are many facets to our identity, but we do not have to do any explanation or apologizing for our ethnic and racial sides to ourselves because there are just so many great parts of this community of Asian Americans and all its affiliated communities.
Okay, so you started in high school. That's pretty cool. Now, the thing is that some people, like when they have like different when they come into activism or they've been in it for a little while, they start to associate with a certain ideology. You have like your capitalists, your socialists, and that's not the only thing. Like you have environmentalists, you have different like Republican, Democrats, whatever type of category, right? Now, you said that you're an Asian American activist, right? Is there any other particular camps that you fall into within the activism realm, like maybe nonviolence or what just to understand your framework a little bit more?
My particular interest is public voice and public life, and that means political. And it's been so the foremost org I'm with is Asian American Action Fund or AAA Fund. And I've been with them for 12 years, basically after the 2008 election, the first Obama administration. I realized that I should give back to the orgs that helped me to figure out how to vote. And at that time, the AAA Fund had an excellent voting guide. So I realized that is where the public voice can be extremely powerful because the amount of power that politicians convey is quite large as they make laws, right? Lawmaker is their actual role. So I gave back by volunteering. I have a lot of technical, and my day job is software development. So I gave a lot of technical help, and that was it's been a long, happy time. But yeah, they give money to all sorts of candidates, all of the congressional campaigns that are Asian American affiliated, and a lot of campaigns that are of Asian American interest, such as Northern Virginia and inland valley of California, which is Filipino heavy. So they may not have Asian American politicians, but they are very of interest to the community. So through that organ, we can obtain greater public good and movements that are, of interest. And that principally is like, Medicare for all and financial movements that make the Asian American community often has power through our community day lives, the day jobs in our businesses. And so those are worth supporting. And sometimes you need, public interest to grease the ability for businesses to do business. So there's a lot of power that comes with these campaigns and then seeing them in office.
Wait a minute.
So
So,
it's like
so
a
you work
large.
East Coast and West Coast? Because this is super exciting because, like, I got questions about what's going on the East Coast. I hear on the West Coast that our people are doing, like, way better, running for way more stuff. My friends are saying, yo, Ed moved to California. Like, you could be someone out here. I'm like, no, I can't. You know what I mean? Stop making shit up that you're talking about a fantasy land. Anyways, yeah. So, look, you're helping these candidates out here. What candidates are you excited about? Any particular candidates from New York State?
We've had a bunch of incumbents from New York State. So I don't believe this election cycle, which is actually the midterms, as you know, are just weeks away, are
Mm-hmm.
new. And
Mm-hmm.
not in New York State or in Jersey.
One person who I'm
We
kind of like standing against, which is a little bit weird, is Grace Meng. Now I know that she's done some Asian American stuff. If you look at her resume, you'll see her events and stuff like that. But I don't see her really driving for the real stuff or really taking on any controversy to really say, hey, you know what? What's up with this shit over here? You know what I mean? Like I don't see her really I see her taking a very friendly, hey, look, maybe that's something to work on for years. What's the story, man? I want to know. Who?
Yes,
So look, maybe it's me being critical. Your face didn't turn like, oh my. So that makes me feel like maybe you're hip to some of these arguments. But
I
Who's
feel
some of the
you.
best ones out here in New York? I don't know. Who would you choose?
Ah, so generally, many of the candidates in office, including Meng, who's one of the most long-serving, and Ron Kim and Yulan Yo, have been more sedate and they have not been as um, vocal as we really need because our voice is our power. And so that has been a very widespread sentiment. And even in New York State, in New York City, where we are experiencing high levels of on-Asian violence. And so I feel that. I absolutely agree. My whole being is in that. And
That's what
but
I'm
with the
saying. I'm not the only one. See? All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
all good.
Go ahead.
And so the question is, which candidates can do that? Actually, I'm not familiar with the opponents for her in the general election,
Mm.
and for better and worse, in that she's likely to win the general election because the basically won't the candidates that are running also in general will not run on the Democratic Party line. The party has already advanced one candidate, so they would run on other party lines. But there's a really ugly math as to how you would get on the ballot under another party line, because a lot of parties caucus with the Democrats. So this becomes really technical and inane and kind of unfortunate because if a third party, even the Working Families Party, would put up a candidate, they might cannibalize votes away from the Democrats. And of course, I do believe that democracy, we should advance all the candidates that should be there. But unfortunately, because it is a two-party system, it is a binary issue. So this is really unfortunate because then we cannot advance other candidates into the general election, even under a third party, without potentially cannibalizing the original. And we might risk a worse outcome if we have someone who we didn't want to win just because we were infighting, not during the primary. So this is really, really awful and hard sort of, it's a system that's at issue. The two-party system is not working in our favor. Now we've tried a third party, right? Andrew Yang has the Forward Party, but the Forward Party has not, like many other third parties, gone from down ballot up ballots. Like you have to put in a bunch of candidates to get in at the grand level and then have them go up. Like you can't start at the top because it's really hard to get the power and recognition. You kind of have to start somewhere and then work your way up.
A
So
quick question. Have you seen my videos covering the Forward Party?
I have not, and I will.
Oh
I'm
my goodness,
so
yo.
excited to though.
Woo, let me tell you some of the business going on here. Oh my God. Okay, check this out. So the thing is that, okay, the Forward Party staff is 100% white. And I'm not against white people, right? White people are cool. But the fact of the matter is that every single coordinator from New York City, right, actually quit
Mm,
Yang's campaign because Yang was pulling off so many shenanigans. The fact of
mm,
the matter is that there was like racist and sexist stuff going on like inside the thing itself, and actually you know the Asian community was really used and abused by Yang, which I kind of understand, right? Just being in this community, but nobody's talking it and no one's helping us. if a prominent black leader had an all-white staff, someone would say something and say, "Look, this needs examination." But when it happens to us, there's no examination at all. No one cares. It's like, oh well, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be said, and I'm thankful you said it. And everyone should be watching, including myself.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, man. Well, hell yeah. So, what about the West Coast? I'm so interested. It seems like you're finding things on the West Coast. I'm not there as much.
Ah,
Um,
it's way more diverse and way lengthier. So as you know, actually, Southeast Asians and East Asians have held statewide and higher congressional offices from the West. We're talking not Intermountain West, but like actual West Coast
yeah.
since the 1950s. And they have had enormous power, especially in Hawaii and California. So Hawaii is unusual because it is a majority Asian American state, the only such.
Yeah, for
And
blacks, it's
so,
like North and South. For us, it's like East and West, kind of.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So California have had decades, multiple generations of significant East Asian representation, all East Asia, not just Chinese, but down through Southeast Asia too. So it's a very rich ecosystem. Actually, at this point, you have multiple Chinese Americans running against each other inside of one congressional election district, which makes it for which I always thought one day we would have to decide between which one of our own, and California is already at that day. And um, but is very rich also in political calculus. The most good example is Young Kim and Michelle Steele from California's 39th and 48th neighboring districts. They are Republican. They represent OC, which is, right, this might surprise East Coasters, very Republican. It's got an extremely illustrious history of great Republican leaders, not just McCarthy now and Reagan in the past, but in between. So they're more moderate um, Republicans. They do try and explain things. They're not as extreme and difficult as some of the other Republican candidates. But it's important to remember that Asian Americans are as diverse politically as all of America, and so we should not. We should expect that California is the leading edge by representing this political diversity, and we have to respect all of the opinions in our communities. We can't just say default vote Democrat. As I always say, Hillary's pizza budget was bigger than her Asian American outreach budget, for which I'm still mad to this day. And we cannot have that continue. That's just recent and it's egregious.
Hey, where do most Asian Americans line up? Are they mostly Democrats or mostly Republicans? I've heard it both ways.
AAPIA vote is the leading source of such statistics, and AAPI data is a outreach of UCLA, and they also have good statistics. I believe at the moment is roughly at 71% of Asian America that is voting does vote along Democratic lines, very roughly. By actual sentiment, it is actually pretty even, 59-51 by sentiment, but what counts is the vote. So you do see a difference in who's voting versus what we're feeling and thinking, which I think is actually a problem, right? Voter turnout is often what wins elections. And so we have people co-opting and trying to misrepresent our community by just turning out the vote in their favor. That is disservicing the amount of diversity we have, and we can't get to a better democracy unless we hear the diversity of opinions. So we don't have that diversity in the Asian American political system as much as it really should be there to be healthy.
Yo, that's some really dope stuff you're saying, man. I really appreciate it so much. I've been looking for my Asian brothers and sisters in the game like for a while out here, and there's a couple of them. But another thing that I like about you is, actually, what are you? You're now. My parents were Korean, but I was born here in the States. Like I'm completely Americanized. What about you? You Chinese American or
My parents came from Taiwan for
Taiwan?
grad
Cool. Okay.
school, and they stayed. Central Jersey is where I was born, and it has a. So it's interesting. Chinese have come in many different waves, and as has all of the East Asian representations. For Chinese, it has been that Taiwanese were first in the 1960s and 70s heavy for professional things. So you see most Taiwanese as highly educated scientists and professors. They got in quite early. Chinese Americans, as you know, until 1965 Immigration Act change, were not allowed to emigrate to the US. And after they were allowed to, China itself did not really open up until rather late in the game. So after the 1970s, China really opened up. Now we have a significant amount of mainland. And then actually, they have mainlanders have come in waves. First, the Southern Chinese, originally for the railroads, then again from that same region of Taisan and Guangdong. And then it's moved around, right? We had the Anhui and then over to Sichuan, and now we have Wenzhou and Lanzhouese more diversity from China. But yeah, I'm Taiwanese, so that puts me in an interesting spot because Taiwanese Americans have early occupied Chinese American politics, which was obviously very much anti-mainland, which has become a problem because now there's all the xenophobia. So the being as anti-mainland does not work as well because then you have other not friendly people saying, "Oh yeah, we got to hate China." And I'm like, this is not this is not the it's much complicated than that. No.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people just don't know. So I actually just end up disregarding a lot of information from foreign lands and stuff just because I see how much they screw up that misunderstanding what's going on for us. Yeah. So I just took a step back. All right, cool, man. Actually my interview usually the online active interview series usually does follow. I'm gonna stick to it as much as I can, but there's just so much personal, interesting stuff for me. I'm gonna take some little side bets. You're just gonna have to forgive that. That it is what it is. Yeah. All right. So,
Yeah.
yo, awesome, my man. All right. So the next question is, a lot of us we are inspired by, or maybe we build the framework right before I ask you like if you follow a certain ideology. Now, for me, I'd have to say a lot of my heavy influences would be Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and that makes sense. They're American style activists. That's what you learn about in school. Is your activism kind of like based off of any other are there any influential people in your uh, pathway to becoming an activist that inform how you
I'm
approach things?
I'm unwell read in political history, to be honest. Actually, I'm an engineering major, so, but most since because my early practice in activism were from the AAA fund, and I'm personal by personality. I'm big into best practices and what is known to work and process itself. But a lot of the board members are attorneys. So I tend to operate with like process and order. I like to establish for a media team, I like to establish, when we have a political media campaign, you got to put out a lot of media and that has to happen quickly. So I like to make the process to do that quickly. So when the stuff happens that you can get it out instead of being there in Photoshop being like, oh, it took me 12 hours and we lost the day because, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not acceptable in politics. So for me, it's just mostly process and order from the practice of attorneys in my org. So it's not a very inspiring answer, but that's my personality.
So you're less about like individual like personalities, right? Yeah, and then you're more about like systems, I guess. That's cool.
Yeah, I
So,
like to sit in the background and enable others because I don't like the spotlight. So I like to give others the tools by which they can do what they want. They want a big media weapon, I give them the media tools, and then they can
there
create
are
and put
some
it out.
known people in the politics game who have fulfilled those roles in the past, right? Do you see any of those as models for your own work, or are you just kind of like figuring it out on your own? You just kind of put it all
Oh,
together.
Ash, Asian American media is so full of great examples, and there are many inspirations. So as you mentioned earlier in the beginning, we had a magazine, which was so early. It's like in the
What
90s.
was your connect? Did you ever have a connection to that? Did you write for it, or did you any do
No,
anything?
no, I
Okay,
subscribed to it, but that was it.
all right.
Um, so A Magazine it's still, so the magazine itself is gone. And there's a very similarly named Plan A Mag by Teen Sheng nowadays. And they are very, very stellar writers in that staff. But the A Magazine has given us a successive number of magazines. I think off the top of my head, there's Korean Magazine, which has now become, Korean has become Mochi Magazine.
Okay.
And then there was Audrey magazine, which has become something else nowadays. And then, oh man, and then there's Character Media, which is the parent of Korean magazine, which also has other publications. I can't quite think of it off the top of my head, but there are multiple examples in Asian American media that have taught us that unfortunately in media you have to have ad revenue to pay the bills. And even if you have independent media, you still have to have the revenue. So this ad model is a big liability because that's why many of these magazines failed. So the question is, how do we get a big media weapon that is the size of like BET or Essence magazine for our community that is not so dependent on ad revenue? I think part of the answer is that to look at what Black America has done so successfully, they've often led the way on playbooks. They celebrate Black excellence without having to wait for representation. They just create this, they don't even have to create the space because they're already excellent. They're just publicizing it. Who cares if others don't know? They know. And we should do that the same ourselves. Asian America is full of awesome people and happenings. We don't have to wait for representation to carve out this part of the pie. It's not going to be carved out for us. We just make our own, we publicize it, and that is the pie. That is creating the pie that we're trying to take a little bite out of. So, but we don't have media quite like with that attitude because unfortunately, this for whatever reason, this ad revenue thing is kind of perverted prior examples and mostly failures to this point, sadly. So, but yeah, character media is the biggest of the bunch, and it's
We're
the
not very
hopefully going to work.
marketable. If you take a look at like even like when Asian American men were like, heavy in the comic scene, right? All the characters were white or black. They didn't make really Asian American characters because when you want to sell the book, it's not marketable. So I get it. I get where people don't. We're not really ready to buy. We look at the actually, I give this little speech because I'm a street performer, and I say, you know what, why a lot of people tell their kids to go to school, but Asian American men have dominated acting since the '80s, but our true society position in society is America's cuck. Why is that? Because we did not pay attention to our political education, and if our school is really empowering us. So, and it's a struggle, man. You know what I mean? Being taken seriously. Who's AAF working with? You say Asian American Fund. Who y'all working with now?
We're heavily on congressional campaigns because there's been historically limited money. So, but we've grown a lot, so we can finally get into state campaigns. But the real excitement happens at city level. As you know, here in New York, it's really like exciting. We had like 54 Asian Americans run for the 33 positions in this last primary election, which is phenomenal. You had literally, I think, in one election, we had like 5 Chinese Americans running against
You
each
know
other.
Ben Yi?
I don't offhand,
No, it's okay. What
but
about
it's great
Dao
to have
Yan?
that.
What do you think? Have you heard about the CCP like running candidates in the city campaigns?
I've heard rumors as to this.
Interesting, huh? The little outside flavor. What do you think about that?
I don't know the real story, and then I don't know if anyone can really know the real story, but it is not unusual for candidates to have their own maybe opinions and often co-opted by saying, "Oh, you must be part of the CCP." So I'm very leery when that kind of unfair characterization is held, especially when it is done by another Asian American, because that reminds me that Asian American political diversity is huge. We have Chinese who have left China who have been not fairly treated in their homeland ancestrally, and then they obviously really, really hate the communist government, and that China itself had this nationalist communist civil war not too long ago, and it's still sort of raging between Taiwan and China. So this co-opting of the story of political diversity because somebody just wants to slander with the CCP label is not appropriate, and I don't buy it. So I tend to be very leery and skeptical when I hear that. Now, but it would also, on the other hand, not surprise me if there were some influences, right? There are natural ties to the homeland, and there is examples of soft power being deployed by family coercion inside the homeland if they have family back there. So there could be a soft power play there. And if there is, well, I don't know because it's their family situation. So I'm not really sure what to make of it. That's all I know.
Yeah. So, interesting. All right, cool, man. So, let's take a look at it now. In your history of like, being around the movement, stuff like that, what do you think the most effective things that activists can do?
Storytelling. We don't need to, I often say we don't need to explain ourselves unless you want to. I mean, some people really don't know. We are only, East Asians are 4 to 6% of the population. All East Asians are about 12% of the population. So we necessarily have a majority that doesn't know our story. So we should not say, no, we're not going to explain, but we should not be obligated to. But we should storytell. That is, we should be unapologetic to say, this is our story. I'm not the smartest. I'm not good at math. I don't meet certain stereotypes, and I'm not apologizing for it. I am what I am, and we're here in America, and it's opportunity unlimited for us. And to tell all of your story and mine, and so many stories, to tell the story is the power. Now, of course, there's other outlets for that. That creates media representation. It creates public opportunity, political opportunity, economic opportunity. We should gain the public offices and recognition wherever we can. But to tell the story, to exert that voice is the most powerful thing you can do. It sounds very generic, but it's actually more important than it superficially seems.
Okay. Now the thing is that a lot of people who are watching this channel may actually be, I really kind of focus more on activism. So the thing is that, and they may be Asian American, they may be watching, they may be, finding that the organization they work with, they're not sure if it's right for them. I've had my own experiences with a lot of, working with racial justice organizations that didn't really care about, my issues. You know what I mean? It was really more geared towards what the media puts out there, which is black and brown issues, which I understand. They're a larger voting percentage. They matter more. Because of that, they earned that. But were they really concerned about just really concerned about power? So what are your, right, you've been in some organizations. What are some of the best practices that you see organizations involved with, and how does someone know if the organization is right for them?
Well, here in New York, there are 100 plus just specifically Chinese American community orgs. Now, part of the IRS code 51C3 is that the issues-based orgs cannot touch political issues, and they can only work on social issues. So unfortunately, you see the tax code restricting hundreds of orgs from doing anything in that political space. But so let's limit it to the issues and not the political, because the IRS requires this. For these hundreds of orgs plus, they often don't communicate well with each other. They are aware of each other, but they are antagonistically competing for the same city contracts or the same funding and grants as each other. And so you have them cannibalizing on each other. And our power is our collective numbers. We are at max only 12% of the population. If we are all 100%, we're no more than 50% unified. So getting all the orgs in communication with each other to at least be aware of each other is a minimum. And I don't even see that. Unfortunately, nonprofits are ailed by not enough staff. It's all volunteer based. And so you have high turnover and you don't have a good, what you call transitional knowledge or generational knowledge. And that's really hurting. So yeah, for me, best practice, be aware of each other, know the other orgs. They're not your competitors, they're your friends. They often have similar causes. They're rowing in the same direction, but nobody's caring to be together.
All right, cool, man. That's pretty wild. So right now, which is there like a main candidate that the AEF is supporting right now for the congressional races?
Ooh, who was the hottest?
Or maybe just
Uh,
local, I don't know. Any of them stand out?
Unfortunately, Stephanie Murphy, one of the Blue Dogs, is not running for FL01. She was really stellar because she was right in the middle as a Blue Dog Democrat.
What do you
None of
mean
them
in the
stand
what do you
out.
mean in the middle? That could mean
So
a lot
Blue
of
Dog
things.
Dems were the ones who were willing to go outside the party and talk to across the aisle. As you know,
Okay.
in the history of bipartisanship, you should talk to the other party because you can't always win your votes if you don't have the supermajority. So you got to get those 10 votes from somewhere else, even if you had 50-50. And that's not a thing nowadays because of the extreme bipartisanship. But I think that's unfortunate. But nonetheless, she's not rerunning for whichever reason. So I cannot think of one candidate that really sticks out as especially invigorating. It's not to say that they're not good because they're all appropriate for the district, but there's not, it's not meat on the bone for me at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad news, I suppose.
Yeah. Yo, I have so many wild stories, man. Oh my God. Yeah, thinking about just some of the crazy things that happen. Before I get into that, I want to keep this about you and and really understanding yourself as an activist. So, what's the how can people find out more about you? Do you have a website? Do you have like social media that you update on, stuff like that?
I do run and I created and I still operate stopaapihate.us. It's the .us, not .org. The .org is the famous one for where you report on Asian hate crimes, but the .us is my contribution of all I know into a meta resource. So it's just a giant resource, and it answers many questions like who's running for office that's Asian, who is on Asian American media, what are Asian American magazines. Those questions are answered in this giant meta resource. It's actually just one long page, so I need help to format it in a more sane manner, but it's all there. And if anyone wants to help, it's a GitHub page, so you
Okay.
could fork it and contribute.
This is kind of a little side question, but it's somewhat related, right? Yeah. Right now we see Tulsi's in the news right now for like I guess her followers took on AOC. That's kind of like an interesting story. Technically, she's Pacific Islander, stuff like that. I don't know if you saw her recent. She's leaving the Democrat Party. She said that she was really concerned about the anti-white racism. Now, actually, as a Pacific Islander, she technically qualifies in our people. How did that strike you when she's, when we look at the issues that we have, right, which are significant and they're really underplayed a lot, right? She's really significant in being one of the first Asian American Pacific Islanders, maybe to. I think there's been former candidates. I don't know if there was a presidential candidate before, right? Also, she brings
Yeah.
to talk about anti-white racism and never really addressing the racism that we face. What's your take on that?
I always warn that reverse racism will not solve it. So there's some truth to that. Like hating white
True.
people will not actually help Asian Americans because, for one, I mean, what will that really do? So there's that, and it's been in the news a lot because of Kanye and other forces. So that's a big fuss of its own. As for Tulsi, she has long been kind of a black sheep of the Democratic Party. I think unfairly so. She has had concerns that have never been addressed and have been buried. And it's because we cannot have civic rhetoric or reasonable dialogue, which are bedrocks of democracy. She has become rightfully frustrated as to, unfortunately, leave the Democratic Party, or well, fortunately for some. But nonetheless, I think the bigger problem is the lack of civility and extreme bipartisanship and not having dialogue. Those much more worry me because those are the bedrocks of our way of life. So regardless of the official party affiliation, regardless of her official media affiliations and whatever, she is the canary in the mine as to the problems of our community that are not being addressed. That she was buried, that her concerns are being buried by one of the two major parties is very unpromising.
Yeah, I would agree with that take, right? What's your take on the current situation, just as it is right now?
Obviously, public safety is a top concern. It's risen all the way into these congressional elections. We see the media that has thankfully come up ever since the very traumatic Atlanta murders be unapologetic in covering on Asian American crimes has always been there, and actually has been maybe historically worse. Right? If we look back into the 1880s, there were multiple massacres and lynchings of Chinese Americans in the Inter-Mountain West. So we're obviously better than that nowadays, but we still have new forms of problems for us, and they span everything from the media to the public office to the workplace to our Asian on Asian to others on Asian. The amount of problems that we face now is much more subtle and nuanced. So I think for activism to be worthwhile and to continue, we have to be aware there is a very wide range of non-massacre, non-lynching violence on Asian Americans, and from verbal to physical nowadays. And so we thankfully have the media, especially on Instagram, to see the on Asian crime documented and spread. And we need to continue that publicity because that, again, storytelling is our power. If we never told about all the victims of our crimes, we would have even less power.
So I have a directed question about that. A lot of the stuff that I see about Stop Asian Hate and stuff like that, I see them really focusing on the women, the old people, but like they're trying to make it out like Asian men just aren't victims as much. Let's be, I don't believe that. I don't know. Do you get what I'm talking about, or have you seen that type of messaging out there?
So could you repeat that question because I had a delivery
That's
on the
okay. Sorry
side.
about that. Yeah. Yeah, I did see something happen. Yeah. So check it out. So the thing is that when you hear about like Stop Asian Hate, right, on the media, a lot of times they'll focus on, or they'll say the victims are most commonly women and old people. But I think plenty of men are victims as well, but for some reason they're choosing to make distinction there and say that one is happening and the other is not. What's your take on that particular?
Mass media and journalism have had all sorts of perversions. Unfortunately, mass media is what clickbait. It's what gets the clicks and does the ad revenue, and they're only measured by ad revenue. So they will always go for what gets the most audience, which is the easiest tropes and stereotypes. That is that somehow women are always, and often they are more subject to violence, but that unfairly reduces coverage for non-woman victims. So yeah, mass media cannot be dependent upon because the perversion of profit. And then so we should have thankfully we have our own media outlets. It started with Jackfruit News and Next Shark and has grown into Plan A and SF415 and many others. But I think the scale of our media weapon needs to grow. Like it's good to have these outlets. I wish they were as big as Next Shark. And Next Shark is great, and they should be contributed to and appended, and it just needs to be bigger.
What is Next Shark?
Oh, it's Benny Lowe's media. It started as originally like almost 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It started as really clickbait. It was like really clickbaity stuff. And then it became oriented toward Asian American concerns, like all sorts, cultural and crime based. And nowadays it's more like a normal newspaper. It reads like a CNN. It's thankfully gotten a normal set of tone because before it was really kind of clickbaity. But Next Shark is like the largest Asian American concerned media thing I can think of other than NBC Asian America, which is really biased in ways that I can explain later. So, but I think we need to increase our storytelling radius. Instagram to each other is not enough. We're just preaching to the choir. It's good documentation, but we need to have much more media and to get the power that we still quite not have.
Okay, so what are your plans for the future? You got anything upcoming events coming up? Any projects that are releasing?
I want to increase the efficiency of this media stuff. Media, I call it the Asian American media weapon that does not exist yet. But I don't want to say weapon because that sounds violent. A media outlet that does not yet exist at this scale. I do think, for better and worse, Next Shark is that leader one. So, in some ways, the question is to help contribute to them or to contribute to like Plan A magazine or the media team here. I'm still deciding that as of a few weeks ago. So,
No,
but
let me throw you this particular idea just on the side, right? So the thing is that I'm here in New York, and New York actually has 8.5 million people. I think LA's about 4, and Chicago's about 2. Now, public cable access, we know that those are available formats. I think that right now Brooklyn Brick Media, which is Brooklyn Cable Access, you don't even have to live in Brooklyn. You can submit material there. So what's interesting is that we could actually make a network between all of our different cities. And the thing is that if we create dope content like Stranger Things, people will go to Netflix for that, or The Boys. People will go to the Amazon to watch that. So if we make dope content and we make it accessible, then I don't see why we couldn't really, we have a lot of good talent that's slept on, that the industries, right, we're not marketable. Well, that gives us a whole new access to a talent pool. If you know people on the West Coast, I'd love to start doing stuff with them. I already have my co-host is Lisa. We actually sat in, the stuff that's going on in LA with the Black and the Latino fight going on.
yes.
You ever heard of a group called Color of Change? They're like a Black interest group. Yeah.
No.
Well, actually, they have 7 million members, and I was checking out the LA branch's meeting last night. That was pretty exciting. Yeah, so I got a lot of cool potentiality.
That's great.
Yeah, that's my co-host from the West Coast. But I'd like to really link up with my Asian brothers and sisters and really create a format for maybe a new media type of a network or something. I'm just down to be part of it. I'm not trying to lead it. I could be a producer. I mean, a showmaker, guest or something.
This is the power where we bring each other's networks in. So I will work to get you into all my contacts out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah. Beautiful, man. All right, cool. So besides the network you stop the API hate, right? Is there you update on Twitter or anything like that, or Facebook?
I don't. I only have a personal one. That's another the media machine that I would be easier to post because there's multiple. There's personal, there's an organizational, there's an activist account. So each has to have different throughputs of content. So yeah, I only have personal for the moment.
Is there anything else you want to share with my viewers before we go? I'll do another maybe interview right after this one, but this is the online activist interview. It's a set number of questions, and it's usually always the same. So you can check out my other interviews with other activists and see how they respond to questions like, what do you think the most effective things activists can do are? Right? I think that's a good question for all of us to review and think about.
Nothing more. Keep each other networked, speak out, and don't stop. It's we're all together. That's it.
All right, cool.
It's a dark day in our nation when high-level authorities will seek to use every method to silence dissent. The truth must be told.
And if you want the truth, you need to check out independent media producers just like myself, DJ L7. You should subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I release a new video.
Truth of these
We
words
are on all
is
the major
beyond
platforms.
doubt.
That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Unfortunately, we have definitely seen that these mainstream outlets will cave to corporate interests, so we encourage you to join our independently moderated communities of Reddit and Discord. We also encourage you to subscribe to us on BitChute and Dailymotion so you can see the content that YouTube doesn't want us to let you see. Hey, now it's time for the most important part of the video. That's right. It's time for us to tell you about the Taking Action group. Do you need an activist? Or maybe there's no activists around willing to help you with your cause and you need to learn to become an activist. That's exactly why we're here. Every week we get up with people from across the nation, in fact even sometimes internationally, and we develop strategies and a game plan to address the issues that are affecting all of us. Every week myself from New York City and of course my co-host Lisa from Los Angeles provide a coast-to-coast perspective on what's going on in the country. If you want to donate to help out with expenses, travel, equipment, stuff like that, then I definitely appreciate it, and you can hit us off at Venmo or PayPal. Thanks a lot. Hey, by the way, we also have a merch store, so check it out. Oh my goodness, it seems like you've reached the end of the video, so make sure you check out some of our other videos. Make sure you subscribe. This is your last chance to do so thanks a lot. And looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment below if you have any questions or issues you'd like me to address. And if you're an activist, the time to make things happen is now.